Good evening. My name is Claire Kaptinsky, class of 2017, and this is Rosie Williams, class of 2016. Together, we serve on the NorCal Alumni Board of Directors, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to tonight's centennial event. Duke's second century is filled with promise, and no field has greater opportunity for Duke to make a difference than that of the environment. Tonight, we will hear from leaders at the Nicholas School of the Environment and the Pratt School of Engineering who are creating partnerships across degree programs, schools, and beyond campus to solve the environmental challenges of today while growing the climate leaders of tomorrow.
To set the stage for tonight's program, it is my honor to introduce Stanback Dean, Lori Bennear. With a bachelor's degree in economics and environmental studies from Occidental College and a master's in economics from Yale University, she then earned her PhD in public policy from Harvard University. Dr. Bennear is a professor of energy economics and policy at the Nicholas School of the Environment. She holds secondary appointments at Duke in the Department of Economics and in Sanford School of Public Policy. Her research evaluates the effectiveness of environmental policies with global applications across the fields of energy, toxicology, and drinking water. Her work has been published in journals ranging from economics to public policy to law to general interest science journals. Dr. Bennear has served as chair of the Duke University Priorities Committee and as executive vice dean at Nicholas. Dr. Bennear directed all of the school's internal operations. On July 1st, 2023, she began a 2-year interim term as Stanback Dean of the Nicholas School of the Environment. Please help us welcome Dr. Lori Bennear.
Thank you so much. Wow. Well, thank you, Claire and Rosie, for that warm introduction, and thank you all for coming out on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving in the middle of a busy holiday season to hear what we're doing at the Nicholas School and at Duke to bring innovation to bear to help us solve some of the world's greatest environmental challenges. So the theme of tonight's program is Environment is Business. And it is business, but it's business built on our science. And so at the Nicholas School, we leverage decades of expertise in environmental science to help businesses who are facing increasing risks from global environmental change, but also increasing opportunities to use innovation and the power of markets to actually mitigate and reduce those risks. So tonight, we're going to take you on a short journey to celebrate our school's efforts to build a trusted platform that the private sector can count on to provide credible information on complex environmental topics, to train the next generation of leaders and workers in the private sector so that they understand the way in which businesses both affect the climate and are affected by the climate, and highlighting tonight the way in which we can bring new innovations and even new businesses to bear to help solve some of these problems. So as we take you on this journey, we're going to be highlighting some of our many successes, and also you'll get a chance to meet some of the people who are behind that work. But before we get started on that, I want to just tell you a little bit about the Nicholas School of the Environment. I know we have a lot of alums out there, woohoo, from the Nicholas School, but we also have a lot of alums from Duke. Some of you were at Duke before the Nicholas School even existed, so you might not know exactly what we're all about, right? So the Nicholas School of the Environment wasn't formed as the School of the Environment until 1991, but we trace our roots all the way back almost to the beginning of Duke University, to the 1930s. The Department of Geology, which is now our Earth and Climate Sciences Division, was formed in 1936. And in 1938, Duke opened the Duke University Marine Lab in Beaufort, North Carolina. It's still there. It's now houses our faculty in the Division of Marine Science and Conservation, as well as the first School of Forestry in the southeastern United States, which is now split into two, into our Division of Environmental Natural Science and our Environmental Social Systems divisions. Then in the late 80s, there was a presidential committee that was formed to think about what should be Duke's next step. We had all of these different people, faculty, students, and different programs around the university focused on environmental issues, but what could Duke do to continue this legacy of leadership and really leverage that expertise in a way that no one else had done before? So in 1991, they opened the School of the Environment, the first School of the Environment in the world. And in 1995, it became the Nicholas School of the Environment after a generous naming donation from Pete and Jenny Nicholas, funded through their work with Boston Scientific. Pete was actually an econ major. He's not affiliated with the School of the Environment, but again, had the foresight to see how using the power of markets and combining that with environmental science could really make a huge difference. And just a little over a year ago, in the midst of a hurricane, or the remnants of Hurricane Ian, a little irony to that, Duke launched its climate commitment, which is the next logical step, again, in this long legacy of leadership. The goal of the climate commitment is really to turn the entire focus of the university, our educational programs, our research, our campus operations, and our engagement to focus on one of the world's greatest problems of climate change. So I said that the environment is business, but it's built on our science. So why is Duke so special and the Nicholas School so special in this particular domain? One of the great strengths of the Nicholas School is both the breadth and depth of our interdisciplinary research expertise. There is no other School of the Environment or School of Sustainability or School of Climate that has both a research and teaching forest and a marine laboratory. There is no other marine laboratory that has both the marine science, marine conservation faculty, but also significant social science faculty so that we can understand the role that humans play on coasts and oceans, and in turn, the role that oceans and coasts have on human health and human life. There's no other school that has traditional geology, but also earth and ocean systems and leading climate science. And there's no other school that has the depth of experience in environmental health, on humans, ecotoxicology, the impact on other species and in ecology and ecosystems, and planetary health, the impacts of all of these changes on the function of the Earth itself. So this means that we can ask and answer questions that other people cannot. And this scientific expertise forms the foundation, really, of our innovation. And we can de-risk the translation of science into commercialization because people don't have to give up their day jobs, right, to try to do this new startup. They can continue to be faculty members or PhD students with us, and we'll talk a little bit about the innovation ecosystem that we're creating that facilitates that type of work. But it's not just our amazing faculty and other scientists that help us do this work, it's also our students. So the Nicholas School is one of 4 schools at Duke. There are 10 total, but we're one of 4 that actually teaches all 3 learning levels: undergraduates, professional master students, and PhD students. And we integrate innovation into all 3 of those learning levels. So at the undergraduate only level, we have the certificate in energy and the environment, and their capstone experience for that certificate is a year-long Bass Connections course where they work in teams to ideate and prototype and test solutions to different environmental problems. Our flagship professional degree program is our Masters of Environmental Management, woot woot, right? There's a lot of them here. And we graduate approximately 160 students every year, and they go on to serve the needs of governments, NGOs, and increasingly corporations. In fact, in 2023, 75% of the students that we graduated from the MEM program took a job in the private sector. That compares to only 40% back in 2012. So our decade-over-decade growth was about 35 percentage points towards the private sector. So there's an increasing demand both from our students and from the private sector for this kind of talent. And then we have our PhD students, and you'll see later some examples of the ways in which our PhD students are actually leading the way for some of our faculty to actually commercialize the technologies that are coming out of their lab. So tonight we're going to walk you through this journey to talk a little bit about our innovation ecosystem at the Nicholas School. So we'll start, something magical is happening on the screen in front of me. So we're going to start with the top of this innovation funnel, right? With opportunity exploration. And a lot of this is student-facing. So you'll hear tonight about our Design Climate program, which is an experiential education program that's joint with the Pratt School of Engineering and that provides students with great opportunities to learn about how one tries to develop a new product or a new idea. Now, most of those ideas don't really go anywhere. The students still get amazing transferable skills from this experience, but occasionally some of those ideas, maybe some from the students or some from our faculty labs, go down to the next level of the funnel where we think there might be something there, but we're not exactly sure what it is, and the faculty members and the PhD students in particular have no idea how to go from we might have something here to we could actually have a startup company. They have no clue how to do that, right? And so the team that you'll meet tonight provides that kind of high-touch support for them so that they can actually navigate that transition. And then every once in a while, something falls out of the bottom of the funnel. And you'll learn tonight about our latest startup success, GridSeer. So we're going to walk you through the whole innovation ecosystem tonight. Oh, and I should mention on the last one that we're able to do the last step of actually helping faculty or PhD students or other scientists or students set up these startups through the very generous gift of Ken Hubbard. He's made a wonderful gift to us of $2.5 million. We're hoping to grow that to over $25 million over the course of the next decade to help us continue to fund this kind of startup activity. So tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to walk you through 3 different examples from the top of the funnel to the bottom. You'll hear about Design Climate. You'll hear about one of our emerging innovation ideas in biocoastal solutions, and then about our latest startup venture in GridSeer. So you're going to meet 3 of our amazing faculty tonight, but it takes an entire village of people to make this happen. And so these are just a few of the people at the Nicholas School that are responsible for the kind of work that you're going to see here tonight. So with that, I'm going to introduce tonight's speakers and ask them to come join me on the stage. So first up is Judy Ledley. Judy got 2 degrees from Duke in engineering. And she is the executive in residence and the director of the Design Climate program, which she'll tell you is joint between the Nicholas School and Pratt. And next up, we have Shannon Parker, who goes by Parker. So when you hear that, we're not just calling her by her last name. That's what she prefers. She got 2 degrees at Duke also, an MEM and an MBA. And she's also an executive in residence and teaches and works in the Nicholas School's Business and the Environment program. And last but certainly not least, we have Jesko von Windheim. He's a double Duke parent, including a current PhD student in biomedical engineering. And he's a professor of the practice at the Nicholas School and leads and works in our Business and the Environment program. So with those introductions, I'm going to invite you to take a seat, except for Judy. I will pass this on to you to talk to us about Design Climate.
Thanks, Lori. I'm Judy Ledley, and I'm the director of the Design Climate program. The Design Climate program provides commercialization and early-stage opportunity exploration services to some of the early innovations that are coming out of Duke. We do this by using student ingenuity and energy to analyze these ideas through our Student Climate Tech Startup Incubator. My goal for Design Climate is to become the leading program in climate innovation. When people think of the institutions that are doing the most to really address climate change, I want them to think of Duke, and I want them to think of Design Climate. I'm doing this with my program in 2 ways. Firstly, we're seeding ventures based on the exciting research that's coming out of Duke, and also training future leaders who can grapple with these difficult challenges. Like Lori mentioned, the program is sponsored by the Pratt School of Engineering and the Nicholas School of the Environment. So my students are made up of engineers and people who are passionate about the environment. They are excited, not afraid, and want to be working on solutions. One other hallmark of Design Climate is our values. I'm not interested in teaching a whole bunch of students about how to get rich quick. Instead, in our class, we work on designing products and startups that have a triple bottom line value set, that create startups and products, again, that are good for the environment as well as the people on it. So what do we do in Design Climate? How do we do this? I seed the class with 5 different hypothesized solutions that address really important climate challenges. These are hypothesized solutions, please keep that in mind, and they're typically inspired by work that's going on from research that's going on at Duke, as well as opportunities from external partners. It's important to be drawing these opportunities from 2 different spaces so that for the internal projects, we can be providing a service to the Duke researchers and faculty who are part of the community. It's also great to be pulling in ideas from external to the community and establishing Duke's reputation as a premier institution for entrepreneurial activity. So how do we find out if these opportunities are any good? How do we do this opportunity exploration? We use a design thinking process in order to evaluate these ideas. Design thinking is a problem-solving strategy in order to address and come up with solutions to messy problems, like what do people really want? It's hard to know. So these are the steps that I walk my class through. Design Climate is a 2-semester entrepreneurial experience. I get students to stay from the fall through the spring as they walk through this. In the beginning, we start them out with empathizing with the stakeholders who are really having these problems. It's important to do this to really try to walk a mile in other people's shoes if you're going to try to be designing a solution for them. Then, after talking to people and doing background research, they start to define the problem and understand it and identify the root causes of the issues that they're seeing. Then, they begin to ideate solutions. This is the time where they say, hey, Professor Judy, you remember that idea that you started the class with that you thought was so great? Well, actually, we think this isn't so bad. We want to stick with it and work with it and carry it through for the rest of the year. Or, hey, Professor Judy, you remember that really great idea you seated the class with? That idea is trash. No one wants that. It's terrible. But we do see a real problem here. And the idea that we want to pursue is this. Great. Then, students will start the second semester by prototyping. It's important to prototype to identify and be able to communicate the idea with potential customers, as well as test the idea. When we're testing these ideas, we're looking at 3 different components. 1, desirability. Do people want this idea? Secondly, feasibility. How can we make this? And thirdly, viability. Can we make a business that will generate a profit by doing this? By the end of the spring semester, students do a pitch to the venture community, and if we think this idea looks good, we'll continue to support this idea going forward and partially put them in touch with other entrepreneurial support, as you'll hear in a moment. I want to give you a little, kind of like a closer up view to one of the ideas that we're working on in this class this year. This is Coastal Connect. They are working on a product that we kind of just call a Fitbit for shorelines. This idea was inspired by the work of Dave Johnston from the Nicholas School of the Environment. Some of you may know him and have worked with him before. He's great. He works at the Duke Marine Lab, and he is the premier expert in coastal monitoring and sensors. So if you want to understand anything that's going on the coast, you talk to this guy. He was working with people who are investigating coastal resilience mechanisms, looking at living shorelines to reduce the effect of erosion along the shores. He realized that there's not an easy way to be able to monitor this. So he came up with the idea of a Fitbit for shorelines. He proposed this idea to Design Climate and me and my group. And we thought, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Let's explore it. So we put a student team on it. At the bottom row, you can see it's kind of like a collage of the students' journey so far. You can see here, they are out at the coast. It's important for us to, when we take this empathizing step really seriously, we try to organize a field trip for every single student group to get them off of Duke's campus and really begin to talk to people where they live and work. After talking with different stakeholders on the coast and off the coast, they began to distill their idea even further. They decided they liked this idea, and they decided that they wanted their beachhead market, the people they decided had the greatest need and greatest willingness to pay, were actually private landowners who wanted to protect their little slice of paradise. Great. So then they began prototyping this work. You can see a kind of demonstration set up here in the wave tank that we've got there, and the kind of like easy to use app, if you think of like a Fitbit, something easily accessible for the data. I'm especially proud of this team because they kind of won our Stakeholder Interview Award. They talked to over 30 stakeholder interviews over the course of the semester. I want to highlight some of the successes that we've had through Design Climate. Design Climate is only a year old, so if you haven't heard about it before, that's why. But we recently did a showcase of the projects that we've been working on at Energy Week and got a little bit of local press. That was pretty fun. But beyond that, it's also important to showcase and tell stories about the startup ideas that these students are working on, because this is a way that the public can access the research that's going on at Duke. They can see how the research that's going on can be translated into products that can really improve their lives. I also want to talk about the personal growth that I've seen from my students over the course of the program. It's my students aren't just learning about the solution, about these problems, but they're really part of the solution and get to be an active part about thinking about what can we do to address these problems. It's also great to see students reach certain milestones, like when they get to talk to an investor and they see that person want to set up a meeting with them. You can see that beam and that glow. That's awesome. Or when students go above and beyond to try to secure funding for pursuing their idea even further. It's fun, it's great. All of you have been at Duke, and it's kind of what makes the job as a teacher fun. So, if you have any more questions about Design Climate, please come talk to me at the reception afterwards, or follow our program on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to tell you more about all the different projects that we're working on. In closing, I'm going to pass the mic off to Parker, who's going to talk a little bit more about high-touch entrepreneurial services that we have.
Awesome. Judy, it was so nice to hear about the real tangible solutions that your students are addressing through the Design Climate course. And I'm excited to talk to all of you about the next stage in the funnel, which is really this high-touch support that we've mentioned multiple times. And I'm going to do that through the lens of Biocoastal Solutions, the latest emerging venture from the Nicholas School. But before I tell you more about Biocoastal, I'm going to tell you exactly what that high-touch support looks like. It can manifest in a lot of different ways, beginning first here on the left with some overlapping actions with what happens in Design Climate, whether that's further validation of the market opportunity or customer discovery that builds upon the work that students have been able to do in Design Climate. But it also looks like a number of other things. It looks like working with our academic faculty who may otherwise have no idea how to navigate complex intellectual property processes, both within and outside of the university. It looks like securing catalytic funding, whether that's in the form of translational research grants, something like an SBIR through NSF or NOAA. And it also looks like actually navigating the process of forming a company, establishing equity, and building a team to take this beyond the borders of Duke itself. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the latest emerging venture, BioCoastal Solutions, which is using faculty and student innovation and research to address some of the most pressing challenges, namely around coastal erosion. BioCoastal Solutions was formed around the brilliant science of Dr. Brian Silliman, who's the Rachel Carson Distinguished Professor of Marine Conservation Biology and Director of the Duke Wetlands Center. His research suggests a fundamental shift in how we think about approaching restoration ecology. Instead of focusing on traditionally minimizing negative interactions that stress species and ecosystems, Brian's work suggests that we focus on maximizing positive interactions amongst the multiple species cohabitating in ecosystems to allow them to thrive despite the challenges that they might face. With help from myself and Jesko and other business and environment faculty, we're taking all of Brian's wonderful ideas and translating his science into real-world solutions and products to help battle coastal erosion. Right in our own backyard at Duke, we're feeling the challenge of coastal erosion really immensely. In the past 4 years, we've seen 11 homes wash into the sea, and that causes pain amongst our community as they lose cherished properties, they deal with costly cleanups, and they see diminishing future property values. But beyond that, it's actually a contributor to global climate change, as coastal erosion contributes carbon emissions when carbon-rich sediments sink into the sea and decompose. And it's not just North Carolina that is facing these challenges. In fact, it's communities all around the world, whether that's vulnerable communities like Pacific Islands or low-lying countries such as Bangladesh, which stands to lose 30% of its agricultural land by 2050 due to sea level rise and coastal erosion. And why is this happening? Well, it's happening because we've lost our natural shoreline defense systems. In the past 2 centuries, over 85% of global oyster reef habitat has been lost. And since the 1950s, more than half of our coral reef ecosystems have also been lost. Historically, these ecosystems serve to protect our shorelines by mitigating wave energy and providing natural filtration systems. While the true value of these ecosystems can't necessarily be measured, the value of restoring them, at least in the oyster reef restoration space, is $90 million alone in the US and growing. This year alone, we've seen historic investments from the Commerce Department, investing over $575 million in coastal resiliency and climate resiliency issues in the US. And while there's interest and investment, current solutions are not suitable to tackle these challenges. And this is where the work of Brian and other faculty really comes in. We desperately need to innovate in restoration technologies in order to bring more viable solutions to our communities along the coastlines. Current solutions, if they're not total failures, are actually costly, cumbersome, and generally ineffective. Right now, we're working through BioCoastal on commercializing faculty innovations to help address these restoration challenges. We're beginning first with 2 key species, developing a suite of products that help to restore our oyster reefs and seagrass. And while we're still developing exactly what those products look like, we've seen immense success in the early deployments of those technologies. The oyster reef restoration solution saw an increase of 800% in oyster survivorship as compared to existing restoration solutions, and a 20-fold increase in substrate utilization, which is really just a measure of how dense the oyster populations are that are regrowing there. So we are really excited about the early successes that we've seen, and it proves what is possible in terms of building this pipeline from academia and from the innovation of our students, our PhD candidates, and our faculty out into the real world. And while oysters and seagrass are really great, we're not stopping there. With the faculty and the student collaborations, whether that's through the form of independent studies, internships, or hands-on support that we provide, Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment and Pratt School of Engineering are well positioned to redefine the realm of ecosystem technology. That can look like the coastal monitoring systems that you heard about from Judy a little bit earlier, but it can also look like solutions like bioengineered reefs or other items that you might see up here on this screen. Ultimately, by partnering with individual property owners and historical restoration providers such as NGOs or local governments, we'll be able to take these new ecosystem technologies out of the lab and into the real world in a really impactful way. And once we figure out our product and we're further along, that's when we really drop into the next stage in the pipeline, where Jesko is going to be able to speak to you in just a moment with our latest innovation, GridSeer. So thank you for your time, and I'll pass it over to Jesko.
Okay, I didn't break it. That's good. Great. Thank you, Parker and Judy and Lori, for setting the stage for me to be able to talk about GridSeer. GridSeer is a recent graduate from our program. I do want to emphasize when I say graduate, think of this as a teenager that still comes home for laundry and food, okay? So it's like halfway out the door, okay? So before I do that, though, I do want to express my deep gratitude to Ken Hubbard. Ken has not only been a generous contributor to our program, but he has been, over the last 10 years, a great advisor and mentor and pusher of the program. And I really appreciate everything that he's done for us and for me personally. I also want to thank Lynn Gorguz and Scott Peters, who have supported this program from its very inception. So let me now talk a little bit about the problem that GridSeer solves. And it's highlighted here in this headline in the Wall Street Journal, which points out, essentially, that green energy is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it decarbonizes the grid, and it creates a certain amount of resilience at certain times. It's a curse because it's actually really hard to manage. And I'll explain that a little bit more here with this idealized depiction of the grid. On the left-hand side, you have a mix, let's say, of energy-generating resources. On the right-hand side, you have a mix of energy users. Ideally, this is balanced perfectly at all times. The problem you have, especially as you introduce green energy, is that that doesn't happen. And in fact, it's largely a result of weather patterns that are getting more extreme. And this is where the blessing and curse issue comes in. As it becomes harder and harder to manage this mix of energy resources, you introduce more risk into the system. Risk means you have to purchase reserves, and that costs money, okay? And this is really where GridSeer comes in. GridSeer is a software and analytics platform that helps to manage, especially green energy, and creates and reduces risk. It improves the reliability, and most importantly, it reduces cost. Before I get into GridSeer a little bit more, I want to give a bit of a backstory of what we're really trying to do. And the best way for me to do that is to talk about one of our recent startups, Tyrata. We formed Tyrata in 2018 in a collaboration with the Pratt School of Engineering. And what Tyrata does is it automated the tread measurement in tires. That might not seem really interesting to you. It was very interesting to me at the time. What can you do with tread measurement in tires? Well, you can measure the tire in a fleet every single day. And with that data, you can really pull out a lot of information on the vehicles, on the tires, and everything else. And what we were able to demonstrate is that with this technology, and you can see the speed bump is really the measurement system. With this technology, we were able to reduce the number of tires that a fleet could use, needed to use, and at the same time, increase safety within the fleet. So this is really important, right? If you reduce the number of tires, you're reducing rubber, so that's good for the planet. If you're increasing safety, you're helping people. The drivers are safer, people on the street are safer. And by the way, if you need less tires, you're spending less money. So there's a profit component to this. So this is a classical triple bottom line company, and that's in fact why we did it. Now, I can't tell you it wasn't challenging. Note to self, don't do another startup in the tire industry, okay? At the same time, we had COVID. We had the Silicon Valley Bank meltdown in the middle of it. I can't even tell you the number of times that we were like within days and sometimes even hours of being out of cash on this company. In spite of all that, we prevailed and we were able to sell this company to Bridgestone in 2023. A lot of people know Bridgestone manufactures tires. A lot of people don't know that they're the largest manager of tires in the world. They lease tires to fleets, and they manage those tires for fleets, and they have over 1 million tires worldwide that they manage. So when you think of this technology and their ability now to scale this technology within those fleets, they're going to become more sustainable, they're going to have safer fleets, and they're going to make money while they're doing it. So that's really what this is all about. For me personally, I didn't have a lot of interest to go work for Bridgestone. And you know, I've done a number of startups in my career, and it's always the challenge when you're done, is like, what am I going to do next? I was very fortunate. I went to Lori, I said, hey, can I come back? She said, yes. And I think that's part of our program, is to allow people like myself, ultimately other entrepreneurs, to go out, to innovate, to take risk, to succeed or fail, and then come back and do it again. That learning cycle is very, very important to the program that we've developed. I actually went home to my wife and I said, I'm never doing another startup in my life, okay? And which she smiled at, by the way. She didn't believe me, but I personally believed myself until Dalia Patina Echeverry walked into my office, and this was literally a few weeks later, and immediately, and you're laughing, but I wasn't at the time. So she walked into my office, and you know, those of you, she's not here tonight, but those of you who don't know her, she's not a huge person, she's small, but she has a lot of energy, okay? She really knows what she's talking about. So when she sits down in front of you, you listen. And here's the story she told me that day, which was pretty cool. So they have a software and analytics platform that addresses 3 things. It addresses the weather-based risk. It addresses intrinsic asset risk in the form of a digital twin. And it also looks at all the historical data of that system. And they combine that in a forecast generator, which is an artificial intelligence engine that predicts and also traces errors. And this they use to forecast all possible states of what might happen tomorrow, and in fact, a few weeks down the road. This is really important because current approaches to modeling model what's likely to happen tomorrow, and then what's the variance to that likely thing that's going to happen. Her software models every possible state of tomorrow and assigns a probability for that state to happen. And this allows them to manage risk much, much better than before, all right? The other thing they do is every time they model, they also measure what actually happens, and they turn that back into a learning system. So I think this is pretty cool software. Right? It's actually much more complicated than I could even imagine. So I don't know all the details of it, but what really caught my attention that day is that they actually applied it to Duke Energy. And they were able to demonstrate with over years of data that their approach to modeling the risk could save Duke Energy as much as 2 to 5%. I have to say I've worked in the utilities industry before. My interest of commercializing something in the utilities industry is about the same as commercializing something in the tire industry, now that I've been there. But, you know, it's like, hey, what else can we do? And we started to look into that. But what was more important, actually, was it's not just Dalia. She has a whole team of researchers that work with her. I've highlighted here 2 of them. Dimitris Floros, who is a postdoc in her lab. He is an expert in machine learning, and then Mauricio Hernandez, who wrote his dissertation on this software. And by the way, they've just come back from Dubai, where they were selected out of 3,000 applicants to be part of Prototypes for Humanity. And when they were at the conference, they were selected top 10 at the conference out of 100 groups that were selected. So this is another validation that this is a really, really strong technical team. So we have great technology, we have a great science team. What do we do next? We start wrapping some business people around it. And fortunately, in the Durham area, since I've been doing startups there for a long time, I know a lot of people who've done deep tech for a long time, and we're able to put a team around them relatively quickly. And we started working with the research group to say, hey, look, let's not think about research, let's think about use cases. I've listed a few of them here, but the key point is not what can you do next with the technology, but with the technology that you have right now, what problems can we solve for real customers? And really got interested in commercial industrial applications, EV networks, data centers, virtual power plants, and microgrids. And as we looked into the markets for those, what we discovered is they're huge and really growing rapidly. Really a great area, I think, to start a software company. The other thing we did is we went out and talked to potential customers, and we discovered a lot of interest in this technology. I've noted here a quote from one of those: "We need your help on how we can predict our cooling and heating loads when they're influenced by things we can't control." This particular customer spends $100 million a year on energy, and we believe we can save them $1 million a year. With the team, the technology, large, fast-growing markets, what appears to be customer interest, we felt it was time to start to consider what a company might look like around this software. We raised money through the Hubbard Fund and also ARPA-E. We have about $500,000 to initiate our product development. We are targeting our first product launch in March of 2025. And at that point, we expect to start to sell to customers. And what's really important here is, things don't get real until you try to sell something to somebody, right? Like, you can talk to customers all day long. They tell you great stories. Until they have to sign a check, you don't really know what's true. And so we've initiated this process to go out and sell simulation, forecasting, and asset management, and with the goal of starting to generate revenue with this particular company. So thank you very much for listening to me tonight. If you're interested in GridSeer, you can go to our website, gridseer.com. And with that, I will hand it back to Lori.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, thank you all for joining us. And this is just evidence that I actually have the best job in the world, because I get to go to work every day with these amazing scholars and faculty members and try to elevate the work that they do and try to facilitate solving the world's greatest environmental problems. We don't do this alone, obviously. One of Duke's great strengths is our willingness, ability, the fact that we really love to partner with different schools across campus. So you've heard a lot tonight about the Nicholas School's partnership with the Pratt School of Engineering. And that is an excellent partnership, and it's very important for the kinds of work that we're doing here. You, just a little teaser, might hear by the end of the year, maybe even by the end of the week, about a new partnership that the Nicholas School will be engaging in with the Fuqua School of Business. So again, trying to build out this ecosystem of innovation and our ability to serve the private sector as they address climate change and other environmental issues. I want to take a moment to thank the team at Duke Alumni Engagement and Development, including the special events team that is responsible for how awesome this is here tonight. And I want to thank our own team at the Nicholas School of the Environment and the Office of Development and Alumni Relations, who came to us just 2 months ago and said, "We think we have an opportunity to do a centennial event in December. We should do it, right?" And they worked their tails off to make this happen as well, so thanks to all of them. And of course, thanks to our 3 speakers, Judy Ledley, Shannon Parker, and Jesko von Windheim. And before we end, we're going to go to a reception here in just a second after our final speaker, but you'll be able to talk with any one of us if you want. We have assigned tables in the back where you can hang out with us, or you can scan this QR code if you want to learn more about what we do. But I'm going to bring to the stage, before we get to the reception, someone I think probably all of you know, Madeline Drury, who is the Northern California Regional Alumni Director. Something close to that is her title.
Thank you so much, Lori. And oh my gosh, y'all, what an amazing way to cap off this centennial year, right? The more I hear about what today's students are up to, the more dubious I am that I'd get in today. I don't know about y'all, but it's very impressive. So while the vision for Duke University may have seemed outrageous in 1924, it is clear that the future of our wonderful university is super, super bright. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders, and after hearing from the folks on stage with me tonight, it's clear that these young, bright minds are in great hands. I don't know what the next 100 years holds, but if I had to bet, I would imagine that Blue Devils will continue to change the world. Thanks again to Lori, Jesko, Judy, and Parker for your time and your dynamic presentations. As Lori said, thank you again to the many folks who flew out from Durham to make this event possible. Special shout out to some of the folks Lori mentioned, those folks in ODAR, Alumni Office of Development and Alumni Relations at the Nicholas School. Duke loves acronyms, in case y'all didn't know already. As well as our special events team for executing this amazing vision and all the visuals. It's incredible. I know I'm standing between you all and dessert, so I'm going to keep it super brief, but I would be remiss if I missed the opportunity to plug the Duke Northern California Regional Group. We're one of the largest and most active regions. We have some board members here. Board members, raise your hands. Woo! So we are always looking for volunteers to get more involved, so if you're interested, you can feel free to chat up one of the folks who raised their hand, or come and find me. Thanks again for you all for attending. Again, we will have dessert, some toast, and engage with our wonderful faculty members. Thank you for coming. Happy holidays, and go Duke.